Hello.
Oh, you didn't.
Hello. No,
There you go.
Hello. I always think of Seinfeld. Robert, you know what
Hello.
Seinfeld is?
I do know. I know what Seinfeld is. I've never watched Seinfeld though.
Never watched Seinfeld?
Okay.
You know. What do you want? What do you want me to do?
That's for another episode. We'll get into that. But welcome to this week's episode of the Wild Wild West podcast. As you know, I'm Alex Gibbons, or the real Gibbons, from a multitude of different things. But you catch me on this show, on social media, and on the Lightning Fast Fantasy Football podcast with Coach Defense right after this show. And then to the side of me, whichever way you want to go with that, that is our man Roberto, representing his Los Angeles Yaryers.
Why'd you have to say it like that?
I don't know. It felt right. But his spirits are lifted. They're off a bye. Things looking good. And then below me here, we got our internal Raiders connection, Mr. Jack Kenna. I'm sure he's got some opinions and feelings to express today that we will likely get into. And you may be noticing that I'm the one introducing this show and not our boy Richie Richey. He is dealing with we'll call them technical difficulties. No, he's not kidnapped. No, he is safe. From what I could confirm, just to be determined if he's going to make it to participate in the show or not. But yeah, how we feeling today, fellas?
Feeling good, fresh off a bye. I'm gonna see. It's like the 1 week of football you can kind of go through and not stress about anything.
Yeah, dude. I'm feeling that right now.
Yeah, especially 5-0 going into your
That's true. I am representing the only undefeated team left in the AFC.
In the AFC.
Just in case you guys.
Richie picked a good week to have his internet, go out. So
I know I was almost on the fence about showing up just because of how much I assumed he'd be gloating. But they say the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Oh, man.
Right?
I'm kidding.
You're terrible, Alex.
But yeah, no, I'm ready to chop up, review these Week 5 games that were played, and look ahead into Week 6 here. Well, I guess for some of you, I'm on bye. I'm chilling.
Chilling like a villain.
Well, actually, let's just. I guess I'll start first, since there was only really 2 games to talk about, and I think the second one will probably have a lot more girth to it. and my review.
What a word choice there.
I've been wanting to just work that
incorporate
in
that.
Yeah. So I took my opportunity here. So here's for your girthy review. I'm
Jesus.
But yeah. So Chiefs, as everyone I'm probably sure watched, it was Monday night. Took down the Saints. I thought looked, pretty much a little bit different offense, with the kind of assessing that they were doing of whether they needed to make a move. Because going into the game, it was, I think everyone down from Veach, all the way down to Mahomes, was like, we're going to see how the room we have now stacks up before we go determine if we got to make any moves. I don't know that you'd leave that game and say it stacked up overly well. Juju certainly had a little – he must have taken some Mike's secret stuff or something before the game. I haven't seen him play like that. I saw someone quote the scene from Willy Wonka when he comes out all hobbled and then falls forward, and they're like, Juju the minute he leaves New England. And it's like, kinda. But yeah, he certainly stepped up. Kelsey kind of to step back. I think it was our man Kenna down here that said he might be washed, and I said, no, just load management. I think 2 weeks in a row now we've seen he's still got that dog in him. It's just they're only using it when they have to, but it's
as long as he stays away from Taylor, it seems like he's doing better. He's focusing more on football.
Yeah, She was there though, but they actually I thought did a much better job of not
Showing her.
discussing it all the time.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that progresses the more she shows up to. But I mean, yeah, you can't be too upset with the passing attack when they throw for over 300 yards. But it was lacking a little bit in the realization of points to the board. Mahomes, I mean, kind of another lackluster game. He's been just murdering anyone that took him in fantasy football so far. Which glad I didn't get him.
Yeah, same here.
Throws for 28 for 39 for 331, no touchdowns and a pick. He's actually thrown a pick in every game so far, and some of them are not totally on him, but it's never good when you're 5 games in and you've already got 6 picks.
Yeah.
Reverting back to our Big 12 self a little bit there, Pat. Yeah, I mean, then the big highlight was we saw a pretty good focal point, our understanding, I think, from Reed and then in the offensive, coaches that, hey, like we can't really play this game like we normally would and be this spaced out aerial attack. We need to, use the running game to open things up. And I mean, we saw him do that. And Kareem Hunt, I think he drank the same stuff Juju had because he looked a little bit like vintage Kareem. If his number was just 27, I would have thought it was 28-16. But
Yeah.
you see him get 27 carries, 102 yards, a touchdown, average damn near 4 yards a carry. I mean, that's a pretty good first showing against a respectable Saints defense. And then, so I mean, from that perspective, like, it's good that they found a way to be productive despite all the things that they've lost so far. They continue to be able to move the ball. You would have liked to see a little more, like I said, realization of points out of those drives and not just the Harrison Butker field goal show. But at the same time, it's like when the defense is playing the way they are and able to kind of clamp down on what offenses are good at. I mean, you don't need to do too much to win the game, and that's kind of every game's been close, but kind of as everyone says, good teams and elite teams find ways to win the game. And so it's, I mean, kind of a little bit of how the season's gone so far is, nothing overly, like a few flashy moments, nothing overly like, it's not like the 2018 Chiefs where they're putting up 40 and just, all these big explosive plays. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts, being efficient and letting the defense, do their thing. Derek Carr did burn him with Shaheed on one play, but that was just, I mean, they shouldn't have been in that cover 2, like that deep cover 2 like that. It just ate it up. But I mean, after that, it was pretty much, I mean, done from there. And the biggest focal point for me was that they were going to need to contain Kamara in order to, I mean,
Which
kind
they
of
did.
Yeah, which they absolutely did. So, a good solid win all around. I don't think that there's anything like overly concerning moving forward with what I saw. I actually saw, and then, I mean, like I said, when the defense is playing the way they're playing, you have Mahomes, who's, I mean, at least for the most part, smart and elite enough to make the right choice with the ball and not force things. And you're always going to be in a good position. And then defensively, like as long as Chris Jones is healthy, they're going to be rolling, for the foreseeable future. Because I wrote this stat down because during the game that they showed, because it kind of went with what we were talking about last week. Chris Jones has 108 forced incompletions by pressures over the last 5 seasons, which is the most by a D tackle. So even if he's not getting the sacks, there's 108 passes that he's forced into incompletions just by sheerly beating the linemen at least a little bit.
I want to know who's second on that list, because the gap between him and second must be astronomical.
Yeah, I wish I would have wrote where they put. I would be. I mean, over the last 5 seasons, you got to think Aaron
Donald,
Donald's probably up there.
Yeah,
and it's like And they kind of put in parentheses like most by D tackles, so it's like, where is he really at on the list of it?
Yeah.
but I
True.
mean, impressive stat nonetheless, and I think goes to answer to the eliteness of Chris Jones, but also shows why this defense continues to be so good and kind of restrain some things that these offenses have been able to do before they got into the Chiefs game. So, all around great win. Like I like to see how things progress in terms of, are they going to run the off passing attack through Juju? Do they think they need someone else? I personally think that they should make a move. I like a cheaper one. Like I don't think that they need to go move hell and earth to get Devontae Adams. Like, not that that would ever happen in real life, but
You would have to move heaven and earth.
I mean, oh
and
yeah,
back.
and I mean, and not that not that that would happen, but I don't think they need to make like an uber aggressive move like something like that, but just to bring in another competent piece that like can build a rapport with Mahomes and move the ball, because I don't have a whole lot of faith in McCole Hardman or Sky Moore, and
Yeah, definitely not.
both had a pretty significant snap shares in this game. So it's like, maybe we'll move forward. There's been some rumblings that if Devontae goes to the Jets, they might try to make a move for Mike Williams. But even then, it's like, I don't know. I mean, as I know what Mike Williams is, and he'd bring you like 1-2 good games and then IR.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much.
I'm hopefully I'm kidding, but maybe not. But
I wouldn't be surprised someone like Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I think the realistic
D-Hop,
like D-Hop, Cooper, Deontay Johnson in Carolina, and like Kirk with Jacksonville. Those are all guys that are tail end, so there's not much money you have to take on. I mean, Deontay Johnson is at the this is the last end of his deal, so he's going to be a free agent regardless. So he's probably, in all honesty, the cheapest one you can get. But with where their cap's at, I mean, there's options out there. Whether these teams are for sure sellers or not, I think is to be seen. Because right now, I mean, really
sellers.
You would think, but I don't know, man. Like,
they're 1-4, and Deshaun Watson might be the worst starting quarterback in the league.
No, I mean, we understand that. I don't know if internally as an organization is like, right.
When are they going to throw in the towel?
And you just like never know with an owner, like, I'm not getting rid of that guy, and things true. Like that is just. I mean, it's one thing for all of us to mention these names, but honestly, I think the only person that's been objectively noted to be available is Devontae Adams, and that's just because he's got a hamstring issue, going on
quote
for
unquote
4 weeks now, and I took him in fantasy, and he's really screwing me over. But hey, whatever. But yeah, all around,
he did that on purpose, just for you, Alex.
I know. It's like he knew. I think it's because I sent all the guys on my team a DM just before the season starts.
Better not up.
I note to them, what parts of their game I think they can improve. I try to use it as teaching moment for my players.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but I usually just get blocked. I'm just kidding.
You made a business decision.
Yeah, right. Yeah, business decision. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I thought great team win. It's good to see them still be productive. I think that was actually the most points they've put up this year. They're pretty damn 26? Close. Yeah, which that's
wow.
Even last year though, they were. I mean, I don't think they ever. I think they got into 30 once last year, and the defense was just giving up 14 a game. So it's, as long as you keep the differential pretty wide apart, you're going to be fine. So,
as long as you get 1 point more than the other team, you're good.
Yep. And like I said, good team win. Ready to move on to this bye. See some guys that are banged up get healthier. Get some clarity on Rashee Rice in that situation, and just see what they do as we get more into the midpoint of the season and approach the trade deadline. What are they going to do with the receivers or any other moves? And as far as Rashee Rice, just to kind of just to kind of grab that now. I don't. There's been no more like fully updated news on it. I know he had a surgery. I think early this week, Monday or Tuesday, but it was, from what I could gather, like a exploratory / confirmatory type surgery to figure out the extent of what the damage was.
I saw he was done for the year.
I think that's
I
what
thought that
they're.
too.
I think that's like preparing for worst case scenario. But
Yeah.
as far as I know, there's been no confirmed deadline or time frame yet on what's going to
Yeah.
happen, because he was having this surgery to figure out the extent of the injury, which
Yeah,
is like wild. But
I saw it was like his LCL, which apparently it's like one of those other ligaments in the knee with your
yeah,
with your
there's
ACL
4:
and your MC. Yeah,
MCL, PCL, ACL,
ACL and
LCL, and then
LCL.
your patella and your meniscus.
So
It's a lot.
from my understanding, from what I've read, is the injury he dodged like an insane recovery time, basically. Like it's not going to be like the same amount of recovery as like an ACL or something like
Yeah.
that.
No,
But
yeah,
he is still done for the season. So I think
4 months
just with
recovery. Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah. So I think
But I
just
think
with
with that, they
that,
just
yeah. So I think just with that, you guys definitely need to make a move to go get somebody else.
yeah. What that
I
is.
mean, yeah, who that might be, I'm not sure who you guys are gonna go after, but uh, yeah, I think the Chiefs definitely need to make a move for somebody.
Yeah.
But we'll see who that is. I thought the only like it was definitely an impressive win against the Saints. We kind of had this conversation earlier in the year, Alex, after the Saints were 2-0, and we kind of looked at them like, are they for real? Are they
No, they got
actually like?
exposed a little bit. I
Yeah,
mean,
but I
Chiefs,
think
Chiefs are pretty good at
yeah.
exposing Derek Carr.
Yeah, I think. Oh well, yeah. I think they got exposed more against the Eagles because the Eagles, in my opinion, don't have a great defense, and
Oh
they got
yeah,
held to what was like 13 points or something like that against them. So
yeah.
I was never really like high on the Saints, but
No,
I mean
yeah.
it was an impressive win, definitely. But I think one thing to be maybe slightly concerned about is definitely your red zone efficiency. I
Yeah.
think what was it? You guys were like 2
It
for
wasn't good.
6 or something like that. Like that game should have been like such a blowout, and it was close the entire way through because you guys are just kicking field goals. So I'm not saying that that's gonna like
yeah, because they
you know
almost had 20 more minutes of time of possession.
yeah I was gonna say you guys controlled that game was. You guys won by 13, I think it was. What was it 26-13 was the final score or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys definitely should have won that game like 40 to like 13 or something like that. Like
No,
it
I
was
don't
just such a
disagree.
not to say that that's like a concern or like the Chiefs are like gonna falter because of that, but that's just definitely something to like keep an eye on as the season progresses because you're not going to be facing
Oh
those
yeah, I mean,
offenses or yeah those types
it
of
only gets
QBs.
tougher from here.
So and offense around the league is down, like across like the numbers across the league are just all down, like definitely not as many points or passing yards as we've seen in years past. So I'm not sure if that's going to pick up or what the different trends are going to be, but just I think it's just something to keep an eye on, that red zone efficiencies is definitely something that can come back to haunt you come playoff time. But like you said, if your defense is playing at the level that they're playing at, which I mean they're easily your best unit of your team, I mean, yeah, it's really not going to matter too much as long as Mahomes doesn't turn the ball over, because man, it's like he just
Boom.
wants to get one
Even if he
again.
turns the ball over. Oh,
Hello.
That the captors have let him video in.
I am
in the basement?
live.
You had a
My internet
Christmas retreat?
the internet in my entire area, for I don't even know how big of a square area that it's out, is completely gone. The only thing left open right now is a cell network. And the sad thing about this in Canada is that I don't even have a hurricane that I can blame for these issues. This is just
did you go to Florida?
no. This is just good old fashioned incompetence.
Nice.
And and I wish there was like a better, a better explanation. But
It is what
I've been trying to jump into the show. My phone's been chopping out because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one jumping on phones in my area to try to, get data and do things.
Perfect timing, though. We just got to the we just got done with the Chiefs game, so I think we're pretty much teed up and ready to discuss the AFC West showdown that
Nice.
we were presented with Sunday. So
I am live from my covered-in porch here in lovely Canada here. So I have reasonably good reception. So I'm hoping that we're going to be okay. So Jack,
you go first. So as long as we got you here, go first.
Yeah, I'll go first before something like horribly happens here. But anyways, who knows? It might snow. But anyways, I thought it was a very interesting game for my Denver Broncos. We saw one of the reasons why the Raiders are not a team that should be slept on, at least in the first quarter. They have a very competent interior defensive line. They had a good game plan to try to attack the Denver Broncos. And Jack, there's a couple things I kind of want to quickly cover off here in kind of rapid fire, and then get your take on all of it kind of all at once, and then we'll go around the rest of the room after that. One, I noticed that your team really and truly did not adjust almost at all throughout that game. It was kind of just the same offense, the same plays, the same game plan, etc. And any adjustments were minor at best. And obviously, I think that played a huge role in terms of what we saw take place in the game. Two, I also get the impression that, and by the way, you simply see this with a lot of quote unquote players, coaches, which is they like to give guys, days off, or they'll let guys kind of like not do certain things and give them excuses and things of that nature. And I'm wondering if you're starting to see some of the AP player coaching stuff kind of creep in to the Las Vegas Raiders locker room, because as an example, I may or may not have tweeted it out, and if I hadn't, I ought to have. Jones, he's either a DB or a linebacker. I couldn't quite tell which exactly. He's got to go.
Jones. I'm trying to think who Jones is.
I looked him up, and I think he came. Yeah, he came over from New England, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, Jack Jones.
Oh, Jack Jones. Oh, defensive back.
Who?
Yeah,
Jack Jones.
Yeah, Jack Jones. He's been kind of slipping. Well, he was part of the whole.
He did pick off Mahomes,
making business decisions. So he got benched for the first quarter in the last game, and he just has not looked like the Jack Jones of last year.
No.
I mean, so now, Jacorian Bennett is right now the best defensive back on the Raiders squad for sure. And in the way of taking time off, I don't know, because I mean, it just seems like everybody on that team, after Tom Telesco came over, he brought over the Chargers injury bug thing too, because everyone on the team seems like they're hurt one way or another. So it's like getting that time, getting that time off. I don't know if it's I don't want them to have all that time off, but it can be a good thing too if you're dealing with injuries. And yes, answer the first question. I think they really didn't do a lot of adjustments. All the stuff they did in the first quarter, looked pretty good. And then once your defense kind of adjusted to it, Minshew, talk about a scared ass little boy. He looked scared the whole
He was eating
game.
boogers, dude.
Dude. He was so scared he was eating boogers.
He needed some protein.
Dude, that's so disgusting.
He's like, what are they doing out here?
When he threw that pick six,
that was a game changer.
That was the game right there. That to me was the game, because you guys were going to go up 17-3. It would have been perfect setup for your defense. You get to pin your ears back, just let Crosby and Wilkins have at it with Knicks, because they're going to have to throw the ball. And in the
Wilkins was already out.
Oh, was he out? Was he out by that point?
Yeah, he
Oh,
was
okay.
up by that.
Either way,
Yeah.
Crosby was still having a pretty like great game, and you could just let your pass rush just feast. I mean, it's what the Cowboys do amazingly when they try to get an early lead and just let their pass rushing go and win them the game. But I mean that was a 14-point swing. You went
Oh, absolutely.
potentially up 14 to tied. Like that was, I mean, I said it at the beginning. Minshew is a good backup QB. He's a great quarterback to have as a backup when your starter goes down and you need him to come in and maybe win you a game or two, So like he's good for that. But in my mind, he was never going to be a solidified starter for you guys to ride throughout the season. I always thought it should have been AOC from the start to get those reps and continue. Because
you're gonna get that now. I predicted AOC, playing against Denver, but I think the whole thing with Devontae, I think that kind of changed the management's thought of like, okay, let's just kind of keep things status quo, because AP has always been about quarters, 4 games at a time, and yeah, now AOC is going to be the starter for next week when we play against Pittsburgh, which I think in my mind, I think it's the right move at this point. Because Minshew, I mean, you just can look at the Broncos game. It's a great example. I mean, after that pick, his confidence was gone. I mean, he was not the same player. Yeah. That interception was Brock Bowers that needed to be 15 feet tall. I mean, there's no chance. He was wide open. If he would have got that ball, there would have been nobody to be able to, stop him around the 3-yard line to keep him out of the end zone. And that was a game changer, but he was ruined. And again, going back to what you asked, Richie, yeah, after his confidence was shot, all he tried to do was all this tiny, dink and dunk type stuff. He had no confidence in throwing it down, down the field. And his day was just shot. I mean, everyone that I was on a live, did a show with, or I was in the chat, and we were just screaming, like, we want AOC to go in there. It was like, you can just see how bad and how poorly he played. He single-handedly, I mean, the game was, wasn't out of hand, during that part of the game. The Raiders actually played, if you look at all the stats, but really won, which is the turnover margin, three turnovers to 0.
They killed in everything else.
They did better. But again, it's all based on your one guy. It's in the way of Minshew. So he single-handedly lost the Raiders that game. And in the way of as a whole, he was just that bad. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. It was trash. I mean, it was actually boogers.
Big gross boogers, dude.
In fairness, I was also going to make a comment about AOC 12. Well, he did some things that were better than Minshew in some regards. He also did other things that were worse with regards to Minshew. And what happened by your offense was that our defense was able to key in and kind of crowd the box a little bit more with AOC 12 in there. Part of the reason for that was that he wasn't throwing the ball at all down the field. At least Minshew was trying from time to time, whereas AOC 12 was just like, he didn't have the time to throw because our defense had already started to make those adjustments to really put the pressure in on the quarterback position, and the pocket just was not there. Like he did not have the pocket to actually throw or toss to. So I actually think that you would have. I actually think what you're going to find in this game, and my prediction for the Raiders game this week, is going to be almost the exact inverse of what we saw this week. It's looking like Devontae Adams is back. It looks like a trade is not going to materialize for Devontae Adams. And so what you're going to see is Devontae Adams back on the field because you're not trying to protect him from injury prior to trade. And so now I think AOC 12 is going to likely have the same challenges or worse against the team that you're going against this week. And then I also think that you're going to then pull the reverse because it's obvious AP is just trying to get a spark from the quarterback position. And I think what you're going to see is Minshew is a guy that can extend a play and actually make a play when something isn't there. And with Devontae, rather, he's a guy that can make a play. Like he is that guy. He is that good where he can do those things. And so I think that Minshew and Devontae, while it may not be ideal for what you guys were hoping for as a Raiders team, I do think that Devontae and Minshew are a better pairing than AOC 12. And I think what the Raiders' problem has been all along is while your offensive line looked halfway decent throughout that first quarter, there was still a few, leaks and holes and stuff in it. By mid-game, it was a sieve because adjustments have been made in order to adjust the protections that you had there. And I think that'll be the issue. I think you're going to continue to have that problem.
Devontae is not playing this week. He's still out.
Yeah. Right. And so then you're going to have the same problems then.
We're going to have some of the same problems. And you know what? I will got to give these young fellows on the offensive line some decent credit. It's only game 2 for 2 of the 5 guys. So I thought they did a pretty good job against your stout defense.
Only gave up 3 sacks.
That's what I was going to say. There was 3 sacks, so that was on the under on that one. I was expecting like what you were kind of saying. Yeah, 6 or 7. I could have saw it the way that offense was playing, but they did actually pretty decent in the way of the run game. They got more yards than I thought they were going to get. I mean, Abdullah. I thought he was going to be a cut candidate. When Labe came through, camp, I didn't think he was going to make the squad. Even he actually looked pretty good. He had 5 carries, 42 yards, touchdown, 8.4 yards per carry. Not too bad. And I was really proud of Brock Bowers. He came out to play. He shows that he wants to take over the leadership on this squad. And, with Devontae, being a Raider or not being a Raider, and I kind of agree with you on this point right now. I don't think Devontae is going to go anywhere, honestly. I mean, everything I've read, it's like teams or what they've been giving up for the, those type of wide receivers is like around a 4th-round draft pick. At that point, if he's not totally happy, I'm not trading Devontae for a 4th-round draft pick. No, sorry. Going to have to stick it out. And maybe next year, maybe they just cut him.
So, Jack, the only comment I have on the Brock Bowers piece, he was the target of what resulted in the AOC 12 pick that was picked off there by the Denver Broncos as well. That was Surtain's 2nd pick of the game. What I was disappointed with Bowers is he had to have realized that the ball was thrown not great. He had to realize that he was thrown into kind of like a tighter coverage there, and he didn't attempt to bat the ball down. Like he didn't recognize that it was effectively an uncatchable ball because he was so well covered that he actually allowed the ball to get batted by a more savvy defensive back and ended up allowing it to get intercepted as a result of what I see as a rookie mistake. If I'm going to be honest, you're going to look at a more savvy tight end like a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle or another tight end that is in that caliber. They won't make that mistake. The first thing you see Kelce do is as soon as the ball kind of is maybe going to be contested or whatever the case may be and he can't catch it, he's going to just flail his arms around effectively to smash the ball out of the corner's hands.
Or he's going to lateral it to someone else.
Yes, yeah.
But perform the impromptu hook and ladder,
Yeah, but
that was actually a pretty cool play.
Yeah, but the thing is I don't think I just think that was a rookie error by Bowers, and I don't think he's going to make too many more of those. But I think that's just an example of the Raiders team. Even your really good playmakers are still in ebb and flow.
There's not been a lot of good playmakers on that Raiders offense, that's for sure.
Wow.
I mean,
he didn't have the best one.
No, Bowers has been the best one this year so far, if you look at it.
Yeah.
Well, there hasn't been another guy that's like who's done as much as what he's done. I mean, he started off setting records in the NFL, and he only had, what is it, eight receptions, 97 yards, touchdown, 12.1 yards, on average. So he was definitely the leader on the offensive side. And yeah, after that interception, but it was just amazing how one play can just dramatically just change the fortitude of a team. And that's where great teams, got to be able to, just like a defensive back, you got to move on to the next play and just forget about it. But Minshew on the other hand, it stuck with him the whole game, and he just couldn't get over it, and he looked bad. And you know what? I'm glad that you guys getting benched. He deserves it.
He needs to.
You always hear like people say, "Oh, you know, one play doesn't define a game, or one play doesn't make a game." It absolutely 100% can, and we saw that this week. I mean, it's such a like, and this is why I love football, because I feel like this is like the one sport where plays like this, like why our playoffs, in my opinion, are so much better than any of the other like major sport. It's because one play can just absolutely like change the entire complexion of a game. I mean, the Raiders, I was looking at this game looking like, oh, wow, like the Raiders are really about to walk down the Broncos, like back-to-back drives. Like this is like the exact formula you need to beat the Broncos, get out to an early enough lead so where they have to throw the ball. You're forcing Knicks into throwing the ball. You can pin your ears back, let your defensive line rush. You know, play with your lead and just kind of, you know, kick field goals, almost not, I don't want to say play not to lose, but when you have that 14-point buffer, it just gives you so much more to play with, and it opens up your playbook to so much more versus you look up and the
downhill.
The game is tied and you're like, what just happened?
Well, and you can look at the reverse too, like with Bo Nix. I mean, he had his best game of the year, and we made him look like an all-star. He had two passing touchdowns, one rushing.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can see what happens when you play with a lead, what you can do for a young guy instead of trying to play from behind.
I'd also say it's also a product of not being able to have a running game as well, because
facts, right?
You know, it's like I've officially moved on from Zamir White, by the way, Chad. He's a free agent in every fantasy league I'm in now.
I was say you're acting like AP. It took you a long time.
Yeah. We made business decisions. That's for sure. But I mean, if you look at it like, Trey Tucker is still on my team for sure.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's playing well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tucker didn't do much for you. Only two for 18.
Yeah, no, I mean he's good. I mean, he's fun to watch, and I like that Getsky's certainly getting creative with ways to use him, but that only goes so far when you don't have a running game. And, you know, I was hoping maybe Madison could do a little better, but it's just, I mean, you're going to have those issues as long as you can't have any sort of semblance of a running attack. That's going to happen, because
you got to have it. If you can't, it's just like, you know, everyone talks about it. If you can't stop the run, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Because if you just force a team to become one-dimensional, that's what's going to happen. And the Raiders are not that good, and they're not good enough to be one-dimensional. That's for sure.
Well, the other thing you guys had,
and not one-dimensional with Gardner Minshew either, you know.
Right. Well, the other thing that you guys had was that your run game really didn't start to get going until after the game was already completely out of hand.
Yeah.
And so, and what the Broncos started doing was they started playing I don't call it prevent defense, because that's not exactly the way they were playing, but they were effectively backing off the line and kind of saying, no, we're not going to allow the 20-yard bomb, but you still got to beat us, but we're going to kind of play off the line. We're not going to potentially put our defensive linemen in huge risky scenarios. We're going to try to have them, like, you know, push through two guys up the middle or whatever the case may be. It was only then, when your run game actually started working, where you started getting like 2, 3, and 4 yards on some of those carries. Before then, the run game was virtually non-existent.
The run game gets going at 2, 3, and maybe 4.
No, but that was after the D-line backed off.
I know what you meant by it, but it's just funny because it's only 2 yards ain't going to get you anything. 3 yards, we've already talked about on other shows. You got to get that 4-yard average, really. You got to hit that 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even if you're 3 to 3.5, that is still a respectable yardage against a good run defensive team. And if you can eke out that 3 yard, even 3 yards a carry, that's still, like, that other team has to respect that run game. Like, they have, because one slip up and that's a 5-yard, 10-yard, 20-yard run, right? So I think that where it really becomes, we'll call it challenging, is where you start stacking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 runs, whatever, either in a row or at least in short succession, where your average yards per run is like 1 or like 1.5 or something to that effect, because then the other team is just basically spanking you at that point.
Yeah, it was definitely, you could see an improvement with Madison versus Zeus. I mean, just overall, because he gives you that extra threat of going out as being a receiver, which, you're not going to get that with Zeus. So I like that
biceps
aspect.
are too big.
Yeah,
You're right.
He's like, throw it to me. I'll catch it this way. Get it right there.
Squeeze my chest together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Carlos, I'll get to that too. But I wanted to pause just for half a second. I saw OG Daniel in the chat earlier, and God bless you, OG. Oh, if you guys don't know, OG and we used to do, when I first came on to do any type of YouTube stuff, I would go on to his show and we would do the Dos Pandeo show. So OG, hey, God bless you. I wish you the best of luck with your eye surgery. So right now, OG is almost practically blind, and he's got to go have eye surgery done. So
Damn.
God bless you, and God bless your family, and I hope it goes well. And I'll reach out to you at some point, and we'll talk.
I had no idea. Daniel and I have been on camera countless times at this point.
Been on this show.
He's been on the show more than once too, as a co-host. So Daniel, wish you the best of luck. Hopefully, not only do you recover fully, but hoping that you get that eyesight back, because that's ultimately the goal of the surgery to begin with. So wish you the best of luck, my man.
God bless you. So
yes, our best.
So again, right now, the only bright spot, I've really been seeing this whole year has been my punter, which is not the one guy you want to have as your bright spot. But AJ Cole, he played another amazing game, pinning the Broncos back.
Wexler.
Absolutely. That's one thing I can say my team's never had issue with is special teams. I can't even remember the last time we haven't had a good field goal kicker or a good punter. So
yeah, you had Janikowski for decade plus.
Yeah.
Carlson's pretty good as well.
Janikowski used to rip like a 30-pack a day.
Yeah.
Right?
While he's out there kicking.
He was the
one thing that did surprise me, though. The one thing that did surprise me, though, was the Raiders have typically been, I almost want to say exceptional, because I think that's probably a fair statement to make, at the coverage unit, like the actual coverage itself. And what we saw in the Raiders game against the Broncos, at least, was Mims was able to rip back a few on you. I was a little bit surprised. I was actually quite surprised. Now, in my Broncos defense, and this is not just orange and blue glasses on my part, because I don't know if there's anyone more critical about my team than me, but we have greatly improved on the overall depth on this roster in the back portion of it. So what you're seeing for my Denver Broncos now is a guy goes down and we're no longer in dire straits at that single position. So you look at our inside linebacker, Alex Singleton, by all accounts, was an all-pro inside linebacker when he went down with that ACL. I think that's undeniable to anyone that's here on the video here, even in the chat. And yet the Broncos seemingly have not skipped a beat with him out of the lineup. And I think that's a testament to the depth and the development that the Broncos are now starting to demand and employ on the team and the roster. But we're finally starting to get ourselves into a mode of depth and development matter. And we can't just go out and spend stupid money hand over fist on free agents that don't work out. You have to go to the draft. You have to get your UDFAs. You have to coach them up. You have to develop them, and you gotta make them feel valued. You got to make sure that they know that they have a spot if they do well. And Sean Payton has carried on a Broncos tradition of UDFA and honing that UDFA talent for the Broncos, because the Broncos, compared to a lot of other teams, have actually found incredible talent in the 7th round in UDFA in the NFL drafts.
And I got to say, that is a testament. I see that with your team too, Richie. For the time that I have watched, the Broncos play, which hasn't been a ton, but, just looking over like game stats and stuff like that, Singleton is an absolute beast. I did look at some comparisons. And again, for those Raider fans right now, he's the Spillane. And actually before he got hurt, his numbers were actually better than Spillane. So that'll just give those Raider fans some context of losing a player like that and then going to the next man up approach.
Was this the first game without him?
Second.
Second game?
Second. Second. And Singleton also had fewer missed tackles than Spillane. And I think he actually had more tackles than Spillane, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Which is interesting.
Dude, Raider Zach just perfectly summed up this show, I think. I think the vibe of this show.
Hey, Zach,
I love it.
Hello, brother.
I love it.
Put that on a shirt. Put it on a shirt.
Hey, Zach, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back in the show notes and go back to timestamp 46 minutes here. I want to pull that actually. I think that's a screen grab for sure. Love it, and I appreciate the comment, man. That's hilarious. Good for you.
That's why we do it.
Well, that's why we do the show. I mean, as these guys here know. These guys here know how I kind of came about to come on the show is I was a really big fan of the show, and I loved hearing. It's like you keep your friends close, your enemies closer. So I wanted to hear and learn about all your guys' teams because I don't want to spend all my time watching them. I'd rather just watch my own. So I'd come to you guys and get your guys' takes and opinions of what's going on and see how that works to help out my team in the way of
right.
And that's how I kind of came across, and that's what I love about this show.
Well, it also helps when we play each other so frequently, right? But the problem is that we also don't have the time to watch every single game with as much depth. So it's inevitable that each of us are for sure going to be watching our own team's game with a fairly critical eye and analytical eye as we watch it, because this is kind of what we do, right? And so I think one of the things that makes this show a little different is, I've come on here in the last, Alex and I have been doing this now for like 2 years, and I'm pretty sure Alex will probably for sure back me up and say that I may be the most critical Broncos fan he's ever met.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I think you're the only one that I've ever met that doesn't say anything unrealistic. We're gonna win it all. Like, the other ones I know, like when they got Russ, was like, we're winning everything. I was like, what?
Well, it's because of the NHRT network and the connection. How the stuff just kind of pops up on your YouTube when you're just scrolling through to see what you want to watch. And some of the Bronco shows are popped up there. I've kind of gone into chat and I will say that you're the odd man out, and based on what pretty much all these other guys are saying that are Bronco hosts for the network.
Jack, I'd have one question. I'd like one follow up, and then we should probably move on to the Chargers game, and then kind of next week and stuff before my internet screws up again. Of those other Broncos fans compared to me, who has had a more accurate prediction of my Broncos record?
You. Pretty much on everything.
If I had a mic, I would have just dropped it. So
drop your phone.
Before I do move on, I do want to touch on a couple things. So Max Crosby had another good game, even though he's not 100%. 3 tackles, 2 sacks. Looking like Max, okay? Easy enough, move on from him. What is really, really concerning, there's a couple things. So maybe Tucker, Alex may get some more run. Jacoby Myers did not practice today, so I don't know what his injury status is, but the Raiders had a huge loss. Christian Wilkinson, after he got the sack, one of his own players, kind of jumped over his back and got injured his foot, and now he's gone for the year. He's got, I guess it's called a Jones. Jones injury.
Oh my!
Yeah, that's like 6 to 10 weeks. So 6 to 10 weeks. So I think he's going to be gone for the year, which is a huge loss.
Yeah. That's massive.
That's damn.
Yeah.
To put things in perspective, Jack,
he's on
when he left the game, the entire game changed for the Broncos. Like it was an A and B moment. Like there was him there and him not there. Crosby was less effective because he was able to be keyed in on, and Wilkinson was really the only other one that was. He's an elite player. Like he is that good. Like he is. You have to account for him because he is that good. And so with Crosby and him side by side on the same line and the same rotations and that sort of thing, it really does benefit your team. And I really think that kind of you and the Broncos are actually, like, the Raiders and the Broncos are in very similar positions where I think you need 2 more depth pieces on your D line in order to make you guys truly competitive, so you guys can put yourself in that true and proper rotation where you can really be truly competitive there. The Chiefs have those like 4 guys that are kind of in rotation on their D line, and that's what's making them real good at the rush. Yeah. The Broncos right now, or my Broncos, are missing that extra guy in our rotation, which is where you kind of saw the weak pass rush in certain rotations and things like that. But so I think the Broncos, or my Broncos, are just like a hair ahead of where you guys are as a Raiders organization. However, his loss is going to be devastating. Devastating.
It's way devastating because, a lot of things, getting double teamed that don't show up on the stat sheet. And what you just said, Richie, it really does help Max free up and let him, pull a lot more different type of stunts, going from the outside, coming up where the center is going to be, and, have an opportunity to free rush. So, yeah it's going to be interesting.
When did he go down?
He went down right after his sack. So he got sacked, and then one of the other defensive tackles jumped on his back, and he played for like 1 more snap, and then he was out. So
very end of the first quarter.
Yeah, it's like either went from his own player hurting him or the next play after that, but that's when he was gone.
And just to put things in perspective, Robert, piggybacking off of what you said, and I'll throw to you and your Chargers once I'm done here. That injury occurred, and I literally made a note of it when I was watching the game. I was like, and done. Because that to me was, I knew that was going to be a game changer. He went down. Surtain had the pick, and then Riley Moss had the pick shortly after that.
Yeah, let's not forget. Shout out to the brand, dude. The white boys out there.
And so right between Riley Moss and Pat Surtain with those 2 picks that like really and Robert, while I agree with you that the Pat Surtain pick 6 was the game changer, you saw the actual deflation from the Raiders sideline when that happened. I actually think that the momentum was starting to creep back into the Raiders sideline as they were playing, because there was still some hope. And then when Moss picked them off that second time, that literally took all wind, like almost permanently, out of the sails at that point, because it was just like it almost seemed inevitable, right? That, when you have that dominant of a defensive performance especially in the secondary, because the secondary are typically free to roam. So it's not like, it's not like the defensive line, right? Where you can like chip a guy and hopefully help out or whatever the case may be. Those guys are free and open. Right. And so that was, I think, the nail in the coffin was the Riley Moss pick.
Yeah, I think just like for me as a spectator watching it, and just like how I feel about like both teams, like I personally, going into that game, didn't think the Raiders were going to win it to begin with. So the fact that I saw that they had a chance to go up 17-3, I was like, well, this is their best chance right now. I was like, like
absolutely. Well, they shot themselves in the foot. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
100%. I was
they beat themselves. I don't feel like the Broncos really beat the Raiders. I feel like the Raiders beat the Raiders this game.
That's what I was going to say too. Like I mean, the way they opened the game against the Broncos defense that has been playing pretty elite, I was like, it was night and day different from previous Raiders games I've watched, and then it's just like you said, Robert, they were right there in scoring position to go up huge.
It was like 3 yards out,
and then it just
all momentum. You got 11 penalties, 11 penalties, and I think 5 or 6 of them were pre-snap. So again, and then the way Richie played, it's like they did definitely shoot themselves in the foot. So Richie, before you lose connection again, and then we can move on. I just want to give one little last tidbit. So Mad Max, and I know you probably feel this more than any other team, is always gone crazy against the Broncos.
Yep.
Right now, he is 3 sacks away to being the all-time Raiders sack leader against the Broncos. Just 3.
Wow.
And look how many years he's got left. He's terrorized Denver.
He has. He has. Now, in fairness, Jack, if we're going to be honest, my team has been dog water for the last 7 years. So, like, my point
mine's
is,
been all that great either, though. So
that's like saying Mahomes owns the division. It's like, yeah, the division's been pretty
like
trash.
There's certain things where it's just like, and then what? Like I don't know what else you expect. Like, yes, you have a top
3.
2 to 3 rusher in the league every year in Max Crosby. He is certainly in that tier and echelon. He is right up there with like the Chris Joneses in terms of great game records in the league. Every team needs to account to where he is. I don't care who you are or how good you think you are. Max Crosby is that damn good. He just is. And so the fact that he has destroyed my Denver Broncos, given the fact that our O-line has been trash, we have just awful protection of our quarterbacks these past, we'll say 6 years.
So McClinton played this week, right?
Oh God, I hope not.
No, didn't he play? No, didn't he play against the Raiders?
No, Paslowski did, and then he got hurt, and then he got taken out, and then we had to do some O-line rotation, which is actually what makes the outcome of that game even more interesting. Is we saw Crum, who I told you guys at the beginning of the season was going to for sure make the 53-man roster, and he made the 53-man roster. He is definitely being groomed for that kind of position I was talking about of development and all that kind of stuff. He is looking good. He is a very aggressive player, which means that he's going to be that kind of Quinn Miners type, in my opinion, in terms of that kind of, I'm just going to be angry and hurt people, which is great. But
it's a pretty good trait to have as an O-lineman.
Yeah. But he's raw, right? And so he needs that in-game experience to get him better. And then Pete came in as well. Andreas Pete came in as well for the Broncos because we at one point actually lost both of our tackles for a good number of snaps, actually. Yeah.
I can relate to
that.
Bulls.
Garrett Holds.
So I guess going into our game now this week, Richie, looking into this next matchup. I mean, it's I don't know what you're predicting for this game, but it's going to be an absolute. You can see in my little title under my name here, over here. It's going to be another snail race. It's going to be another just field goal battle of who can get the best possession. Don't turn the ball over. Like I was looking at some of the stats before this game. The Chargers are 4th in the league in turnover differential at +5. Now, obviously, that's not going to hold up the entire year, but that is going to be how we win a lot of games, by winning that turnover battle and not making stupid mistakes. Not trying to poke more fun at Raiders fans, but like a pick 6 in 3 yards away from the end zone. That type of play is going to lose you these games, as we saw it this past week. So it's just going to be a lot of what our identity is, running the ball. We're currently 9th in the league in rushing. Broncos have the 10th ranked rushing defense. So even matchup there. That's going to be interesting to see. Chargers are 1st in the league in points allowed, defensive points allowed. Broncos are 2nd. So again, that's going to be another just, battle of who's going to outlast the other, essentially. One thing that kind of terrifies me, though, as a Chargers fan, is we are dead last in the league in time of possession. And that, to me, is something that which is it kind of blows my mind that we're 9th in rushing, but we're dead last in time of possession. That to me shows that it's just a lot of explosive runs, which it has been, and a lot of just breaking free, but not really a consistent smash mouth of running the ball. Obviously, these last 2 weeks with Dobbins, he's come back down to earth. Yeah, and like DZ said, our record in Mile High is well. I'm sorry, no, actually, I would disagree with that, DZ. We usually win in Mile High, and the Broncos usually win at home, if I'm not mistaken. But I know we always split versus this team. So this is going to be, and I was talking with another Charger fan on Twitter the other day, because it seems a lot of Charger fans are just ready to throw in the towel and are like ready to give up completely on the season after 2-2, which is like, guys, I get it. I know we're a little bit scarred, and I know we have some past trauma to get over. We're 2-2, okay? We're 2-2 after 2 divisional games, a game against a team that at the time we played them was undefeated and is a play away from being 4-1 in the Steelers. And obviously the Panthers, which was we're not going to talk about that. It's the Panthers, but this first 5 weeks of the year were always going to be the roughest stretch. I mean, we had 3 divisional games in the first 5 weeks with our bye week, so there's a lot. First of all, it's like going into this brand new season. It's a brand new coaching staff, brand new everything. So on top of all that, you have one matchup versus each of your divisional opponents already in the first month and a half of the season. So that's, a pretty big hurdle. This game at Denver, I feel like, is a really big game for the Chargers in terms of season outlook, because this is the difference between over 500 after 5 weeks with 2 divisional wins versus under 500 after 5 weeks and 2 divisional losses. So it's this is like a very big turning point. Sorry, I'm still a little sick, so I'm sounding a little congested. But this is just going to be once again, can the O-line hold up? Broncos
that's the question I have for
Robert. Herbert has not won in Mile High.
So, Robert, where is your
Chargers last
your
won in Mile
tackles?
High in 2018.
Oh wow, okay, so it is we win at home and they win in Denver. Sorry, what was that again, Jack?
Yeah, the question is, where's the health of your offensive line and way of your tackles?
So it looks like they're both. Do we score more than 10 points? Honestly, DZ, that's such a great question. Let me address Jack here.
I would say yes.
Because Jack's question and your question, DZ, kind of go hand in hand. If both our tackles are there and healthy, yes, 100% we can score more than 10 points and probably should score more than 10 points. If they're not there, if they're both not there, or I mean, I assume whoever is there will play at left, assuming one isn't. Maybe this is gonna because the Broncos have, like I said, they're second in the league right now in sacks, and we saw Herbert get absolutely murdered by the Steelers once Alt and Slater went out. If that's the case, the Chargers have no chance in this game because the Broncos are just going to send hell. They got to steal maybe one possession, and as long as Nix doesn't absolutely crap the bed in terms of turning the ball over, they'll pretty much, waltz their way to an easy win. But if the tackles are there and they're able to hold up and actually give Herbert some time to throw, I feel like they'll give the Chargers a lot more of a chance. I mean, we saw it because I feel like the Steelers and the Broncos defense are very similar defensively. Obviously, the Broncos don't have like that premier pass rusher that the Steelers do, but I feel like just as a whole, the Steelers and the Denver defense are very similar in that the pass rush is fantastic. They will get after your quarterback, and they're just very good at playing with a lead and not having the ball turned over. Obviously, we saw, Fields kind of do a somewhat good job of that, and they're 3-2 right now. I think, in my opinion, Knicks is back to yeah. That is, I will say that
That's
is
weird.
tough to go. Yeah,
Yeah,
back to
Carlos.
back divisional games. That is tough, and that is something. I mean, I guess the Chargers are technically back to back division games, but obviously have the bye week smushed in the middle of that. But yeah, I know, but I just the mental part of playing back to back division games is
You
definitely.
keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, I mean, for the Chargers, it definitely is, because it's first time head coach, and he's quote unquote, I guess, with AP, although he was, I guess, somewhat there before Harbaugh was. Harbaugh's still technically the newest coach in the division, so he has to kind of make a name for himself. But after all that, this is going to again come down to turnover battle and who can win that, and I hopefully to see these tackles healthy. So if the tackles are healthy for the Chargers, I have them winning this game 17-15, or excuse me, 17-16. Sorry. It's going to be a 1-point game no matter what. I feel like these division games are always tight knit and close. However, if our tackles aren't there, and for whatever reason it's just Herbert out there with no Alt or Slater, I have the Broncos winning this game, and it's going to be more so. Yeah, God, the injury report, Jesus. But anyways, yeah, if the Broncos, if our tackles aren't there, I have the Broncos winning this 23-10.
Your prediction of score is similar to what I think it was going to be. I see this as being a 23-point game for my Denver Broncos to 10-13 or 10 to even 17 for your Chargers, depending on how things go. The Broncos could sneak away with a few extra points, depending on the defensive outcome.
Yeah.
That's
curious to see.
Like that's the wild card in this game. Like that's the legitimate wild card in this game. So as an example, if your offensive line, like Alt, for example, even if he does play, is not going to be 100%, and I am concerned that he is not used to more aggressive divisional rivals that are bigger bodies coming at him. He's a big dude. Don't get me wrong. Actually, the guy's a monster, but
huge. Yeah, 6'9".
but when you're not 100%, it depends on what his mentality is. Like, so for example, a lot of dudes will try to course correct to avoid getting themselves more hurt. Well, that inevitably means that they're not doing stuff that they would normally do, and can oft then result in them getting hurt even worse, or hurting something else that wasn't actually hurt before the game, but then they get hurt because they're like, overcompensating and doing some silly stuff, right? So I think that's a fair comment to make. We see that all the time in the NFL, by the way. Like this is I bet you Alex has even seen it playing competitive college ball too, right? Like, dude has a sore right ankle, overcompensates, and all of a sudden like hurts his left hip because they're overcompensating for the one injury versus the other.
You gotta do it right. You gotta take a whole lot of stuff to make you not feel anything, and then go play, and then deal with it after.
Yes. And just because Mr. Garrison says drugs are bad, that does not necessarily make that statement true when you're playing competitive football and you're getting like $200,000 a check or something when you play in a game. So my general consensus, though, is the Chargers have a few injuries that I think are going to be problematic. One of them is Herbert not being 100%, which means that he's going to be less mobile than he normally is. That gives you guys less options to have him escape, and it also makes him more likely to get sacked and less likely to be able to do his best impression of Big Ben Roethlisberger and shimmy shake the sacks that he's often able to do from time to time, given his speed and size. He's a big dude. Like, he's not a small quarterback,
6'6".
but he's not a small guy. But the fact remains is that you're going to be in a challenging spot given the fact that he's nowhere near 100%. And the Broncos have, as you stated, they're number 2 in terms of getting after the quarterback, which is no small feat to be at that point coming in to week 5. And then, so now we're looking at where we're at right now with my Denver Broncos, and we also have the benefit of an incredibly dangerous and very opportunistic secondary. And I think that is going to be equally as challenging for Herbert, because if he is not 100%, that means he won't be able to fully plant those feet, or he'll be throwing off his spot or whatever the case may be. And if we're going to be honest, that has been his Achilles heel. When he has taken off his spot and has to throw off platform, he typically does not do well, and that's actually where he makes his mistakes, if we're going to be perfectly honest. And then fast forward to the Broncos offense. As much as I didn't want Bo Nix to start, and I still maintain that I'm correct in my original assessment, what we have seen.
Really, really quick, I just want to say we're going to get a very in-depth look as to which one of us is correct in terms of when you should start a quarterback middle of the season after you have a veteran ride, the starting bit for a little bit, or start them right away, because the Patriots are about to get Drake May in there. And if you want to talk about a terrible offensive line, Patriots probably have a worse O-line than you guys do. So it's going to be very...
Well, they do for sure. Yeah. They do for sure. Yeah, they do.
I'm going to be very interested to see how he does versus how Nick's, because Nick's by all accounts is looked pretty good. I'll say that loosely.
I say good this last game. I can't say good for all the other games.
Right,
but he looked good against the Raiders for sure.
Good in the sense that he is making improvements week after week, and
I agree with you on that. He has improved weekly.
He is. But what my general consensus and comment is that I actually believe that the Denver Broncos, especially with the defense that has played as well as we have this season, and make no mistake, even with a lackluster offense, the Denver Broncos defense has played upper tier across the board in the NFL, and that's like for sure. So my point is that typically when you have a defense that's playing as well as the Denver Broncos are in their defensive side of the ball, you typically don't lose games when you when you keep other teams to like 10 points. Yeah. Right? Like it just normally doesn't happen. And so my point necessarily isn't that, like, yes, Nix has improved. Yes, he's made improvements every game, actually, where he's, moved on from some of those mistakes that he was kind of making earlier in the year. And that's undeniable. My point is that I'm not sure he would have made some of those early mistakes if he was analyzing from the sideline and reviewing game film to begin with. He would have still made some boneheaded plays. Don't get me wrong, like for sure. But I do think that what we've seen these last two games, specifically these last two games, is he has turned the corner on some elements of his game, where he's getting more comfortable and getting more confidence throwing down the field, throwing longer balls. I think Sean Payton has also done a few things, guys. I know you guys won't recognize this because you're not watching every single Broncos game. So I'll kind of have you guys take a look and look back at some of the film. Jack, you would have just witnessed this. In the first 2 games of the season, or 3 games even of the season, Sean Payton was putting a lot of guys in the backfield for quick dump routes so that Bo Nix had an outlet that was in the backfield. And unfortunately, what Bo Nix was struggling with is that he wasn't going through all 3 progressions and seeing the entirety of the field. And so what he was end up doing was he'd go to read 1. If you're lucky, he would go to read 2, and then he'd immediately throw to the dump off or the horizontal route that was in behind the line of scrimmage and hope that yards after the catch were possible. And in many cases, they were not. Now, what we've seen in these last 2 games, and this will be interesting to see if Harbaugh and your Chargers make adjustments to account for this, Robert, because this is looking like the new MO of my Denver Broncos, is those outlet throws that I was referring to in those first couple games of the season, they're now past the line of scrimmage. So Sean Payton is no longer scheming those guys as horizontal routes. He is forcing Bo to throw a yard or 2 down the field. And you made a couple comments earlier, one of them that I thought was very interesting. You're pretty highly ranked when it comes to stopping the run, generally speaking. But you're also giving up a fair number of points and or yards. So how are you doing that? And I'm wondering if the reason why you're doing that is that middle portion of the field. So just past your defensive line, between the linebackers and kind of where the safeties would traditionally creep up to kind of help the linebackers in that kind of middle section there. I do wonder what the heat map looks like in terms of big play success for your Chargers. I would suspect, and I have nothing to confirm this, just anecdotal evidence of what you kind of said earlier in terms of the outcome there. I would hazard to guess that it's either issues with some portions of your secondary and or that middle section of the field, like the linebacker, the middle linebacker position, maybe giving up, crossers or yards after the catch or whatever the case may be. And so I think that my Denver Broncos can do some really interesting things with some of the guys we have on our team. Little Jordan Humphrey being 6'4", 200 and change, I think will cause some challenges because he's got wide receiver speed but tight end height. I think that can cause some major challenges for a lot of teams. I think Cortland Sutton. I also think Mims and his speed, and then also the combination of kind of thunder and lightning between Javonte Williams, who's had a resurgence in these last few games, to his credit, by the way, because I didn't think he was going to even make the team. He's done great work for our team in terms of the run game.
Well, that leads me to a question for you, Robert. So you've had Perryman before, then the Raiders have had Perryman, and now he's back with you. He's an outstanding linebacker. He made All-Pro when he was with the Raiders, but he's like a run stuffer, blitzer, hit guys behind the line of scrimmage. So are they taking him off on third downs, or are they playing him on third downs?
They've been playing him more on third down because Junior Colson has been injured these last week or so. So he has kind of been forced into those third down roles, which, like you said, Jack, isn't really he's not really like a coverage linebacker. He's more of like that bruising thumper, like you said, run stuffer, plug up a hole, can make a solid tackle behind the line of scrimmage, solid foundational tackler. He was one of the few back when he was with us the first time around, where I kind of knew, like, okay, if he wraps somebody up, they're actually going to stay down and not just waltz by like they
secure tackler ability.
Yeah, no, 100%. So that is kind of why that's been happening. I'm sure. I was listening to the Harbaugh press conference he had earlier today. He said that Colson's working his way back. Same thing, off trying to get back from an injury. It's story of the Chargers season so far, working back from an injury. So
almost every season.
Yeah, tell me about it. So hopefully when he comes back and he's back on the field, we won't see Perryman in so many of those third down situations. But I feel like right now, he's kind of just forced to be in that role. This is another situation where we really miss Kaiser White, and Wyatt, one of the few Telesco guys I really wish we would have never let go, because he was kind of the hybrid safety style type linebacker. Flies around the field, great coverage skills. He was somebody that I really enjoyed having on this squad when he was with us, but obviously that's not the case anymore. So yeah, DZ wanted to mention that too. Nick Neiman should be coming off the IR this week. So our special teams will get a huge bump from him. He's another one of those secure tacklers. And he comes in occasionally on defense and some of those packages.
And Perryman was limited today too.
Yeah, dude, it's just I don't even know what to.
It's a long list of limits. Limited.
Yeah, like
limited list is long, dude.
DZ nailed it. Like, it literally looks like a CVS receipt. Yeah. Like, there's just so many players.
It's almost too long that I don't want to read it.
No, like literally, that's what I do. I look at it and I'm like, all right, I don't even care about the limiteds. I'm just like DMP. Like, that's all I care to look at. If you're limited, as far as I'm concerned, you're playing. So we'll see.
Luckily, I guess there's still a decent amount of those too, but
I mean, it's somewhat
it's the expected ones, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's still Wednesday, so there's obviously still 2 days of practice before the game on Sunday. So we'll see what happens from now until then. But obviously, right now, I'm not not exactly thrilled to be out of the bye.
What you guys should both be looking at, which is going to be an interesting battle, and Denver definitely beat the Raiders on this, is with Bo Nix, again, what you were mentioning earlier, Richie, about going to your running back, getting them outside on the quick pass, and then breaking tackles. So that is going to be a key matchup, Robert. and Richie for your teams is to see, hey, can that happen? Or is the Chargers defensive backs going to be able to make those tackles and keep, that 2-yard, 3-yard gain to, instead of 10, 12 yards per catch? So that'll be an interesting battle and matchup that I'd like to see.
What many Broncos fans are not giving credit towards the tight ends for the Denver Broncos is, they're not, knock your socks off in terms of, pass catching and that kind of stuff. But what you do get from them is they are very good blockers for the most part, like very good blockers. And Atkins and Troutman, who are kind of 1A and 1B, if you will, in terms of kind of like the starters that are kind of always going to be out there. In my opinion, Atkins is actually being brought up to replace Troutman at some point, but that's a discussion for a different day. I think that what you're seeing from my Denver Broncos is you're seeing the two tight ends flanking on the outside, which is a staple of a Sean Payton system. And that is going to allow those running backs to break to the outside. And if you have tight ends that are only a notch down or even as good at blocking as, say, your left tackle is, that can really make a difference in a game. And so, like, what Alex can tell from the way his edge rushers kind of work is if you can seal off those edges and kind of collapse them in on the rest of the linemen, you can negate some of those edge rushers in some of those games. And we've seen the Chiefs have some of those challenges in some games past as well, where, some of their guys aren't as effective as they otherwise were or would be, just because the tight ends of the other team are able to actually block and push inside some of the edge rush that would otherwise get pressure on lesser teams.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see this matchup between our two teams. I love the fact that we get to play each of you guys. Well, obviously we already have played the Chiefs and the Raiders, but I love the fact that we get to play each of you guys this early on. I feel like it gives me a really good kind of gauge as to where Harbaugh has this team. I'm very excited to see what they have planned coming out of this bye. I think I mentioned this in one of the earlier shows. This is the situation I would have preferred. Was never really expecting to beat KC, so I would have much preferred to have Denver after the bye rather than KC after the bye. Obviously, at 2-2, it's a very kind of optimistic part of the season because you can go really anywhere from here. This could turn into a really good season for the Chargers. And, we look back at this win being like, this is kind of like the spark of the takeoff that the Chargers have. Because looking at their schedule after Denver, you have Arizona 1-4, or I'm sorry, they're 2-3, but I'm not like scared of Arizona, if that makes sense. New Orleans, that's another one who same thing. I'm not terribly scared of. And so with that last place schedule, this could be a big win for the Chargers. But it's going to come down to, can the defense hold Knicks? Can the defense maintain and not break? And then can the offense maintain drives and keep Herbert upright? Can we, even if you're not necessarily scoring on every single drive, you don't have to be the Commanders, but just keeping your defense
efficient.
you got to be efficient.
Clean, like DZ said, clean football.
Keep your defense off the field as much as you can. Give them time to rest up, and you just don't turn the damn ball over.
Yeah,
like that is the biggest thing with Harbaugh coach teams is they're heavily reliant on not turning the ball over. So as long as we play smart football, and just try to get this run game going, try to see if Dobbins can get back to what he was doing these first 2 weeks of the season, I think we'll have a very good chance. But I would be lying if I said I'm not nervous at all going into this game in Denver. So we'll see what happens. But I don't know if I caught a score prediction from you, Rich. What would you say your prediction was for this game?
Yeah, I had the Denver's upper sitting at around 23-20 24, 20, somewhere in that kind of like mid to mid 20s. I mean, if I were going to give an absolute upper, it would be 27, I think, which is probably the absolute upper in my opinion, just given the quality of the defense that you guys have. And that's factoring in what I believe could be defensive scores and or defensive interceptions that would then kind of flip the field for us, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, exactly. So I factor that in, and then where the the real sliding scale for me comes is how many points you guys get. I have you guys at maybe 13 points. If I'm going to be honest, I just think that there's the injuries across your offensive line that are going to be a major issue for you guys. I think that our defensive line is less banged up than your offensive line, and I know it's like a weird way of kind of equating things, but I think that's important. And
it's
I think
usually
that we
what happens
saw
later in the season.
Yeah.
Right. And then we'll see where we're at later on when we play you guys later in the season, and that could all flip and that script could all be kind of inverted. But I see you guys between like 13 and, if I had to guess, upper, I would say 21 points. And then so then the question is I still think that keeps you below our score total. I think the Broncos squeak this one out at home, in my opinion. And of course, I could be totally wrong and it could go either way, but my guess is just we play each other tough, generally speaking, most of the time. And it typically takes a few plays like we saw against the Broncos and the Raiders to kind of break the will of the other team in order to make a big difference. So I have it as realistically probably like a 23-10 game for the Broncos, in my opinion, although it could go as high as 27. And then you guys could be as high as, say, like a 21-point game, in my opinion, as well. That's just kind of where I have things at.
Yeah, I think the line for this game, the over-under, is at like 35.5 or something like that. I'm absolutely spamming that under. Like you said, I could definitely see this game
35.
being
There's 35 and a half.
35.5. Yeah, I could definitely see this game being a 23-10. Something. It's going to be ridiculously low scoring, barring just high school football breaking out with like multiple turnovers on both sides and just like absolutely wild football.
Good.
100%. I mean, we could come back next week and this game will be 37-35 and we're looking back like what the fuck happened. Bo Nix throws for over 400 and we run for over 300. Like, so something completely wild can happen, but assuming it stays on schedule for what these teams, like you said, what these teams' MOs are. It's very defensive oriented on both sides. Obviously, the offense on both sides have questions. There's definitely with the quarterbacks. Definitely, I'm not going to shy away from Herbert having questions, and a lot of that is just obviously his injury. But can he maintain a solid upright game, and can the O-line do that for him and keep him upright? But I'm excited, and also I'm excited for this game because I want to see kind of like another litmus test. This will be the final one. We obviously had one against the Raiders, against the Chiefs, and now finally the Broncos. But also terrified because I don't know who's going to be playing and who's healthy. And that can very well dictate the outcome of this game before it even starts. So we'll see what happens. I'll say final score 17-14. Chargers win, and that's with hopefully the tackles playing.
Like I say, that's the biggest X factor to me. Because I mean, if both of them play, I think there's a realistic chance. If they don't, it's gonna be pretty tough.
It goes from slight chance to they play, and if they don't play, there's zero chance. I feel like there's no chance we win this game if both our tackles are out.
My prediction's 14-13, but I haven't quite decided who has the 14 or who has the 13 yet.
That's a solid. Honestly, don't even pick one. Just roll with that.
Then we're all around the same boat. I have 17-14 in either way.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I think what's cool about this game, the cool like undertone component to it, is it's kind of the measuring stick for both franchises to some degree, in that we'll see what Harbaugh does with the team out of a bye and how he tries to kind of turn things around and maybe scheme some things differently to help out, Herbert, and match up better, to the Broncos' weaknesses. And then at the same time, we're going to see how the Broncos, build off the momentum they have and how Bo Nix does, in another divisional game. After kind of building some momentum. I'm still not totally like sold on the Broncos offense. In that,
Right.
I think if you can take away the mistakes and letting the defense, kind of dictate some of the components of the game and put it to the Broncos offense to have to go win the game, I don't know that they've shown that they can do that yet. So, but again, you're not really in that component, in my opinion, if you don't have both of your tackles. So, that's definitely the thing to monitor. But I'm excited to see how they look out of a bye, with Harbaugh and how he plans to attack things, because he spent 2 weeks scheming for this the opening 2 drives of this game, so we will get to see that, at least, and then see how the cards fall from there.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Jack, I think you're the last one up. Let's get into your game this week.
So the Raiders got the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know who the Steelers are. They got a great defense. Offense, it's okay. So I see it kind of as a lower scoring game, but I also see, just based on the way the Raiders have been playing and having AOC come in there. And I look back, and I'm thinking of what AOC, did last season. And there was games where he didn't play very well and they didn't score more than 20 points. So I'm going to say they're not going to score more than 20 points. And I've been wrong. Every single game that I've said a win-loss, I've been wrong. And I got the Steelers. Yeah, I got the Steelers winning this one, 23, maybe 16. Again, that's if AOC plays, pretty good. But if he plays bad, I see him only getting maybe 13, just getting a bunch of field goals, maybe 12. But yeah, it's going to be a hard-fought game, and with just so many injuries and with Wilkerson out, being able to try to stop them, and again, Justin Fields, they got to figure a way to contain him. They got to put a spy on him, because he's not a great passer, but he can do things with his legs and make you pay that way.
Good enough,
so if they kind of go back to the formula, kind of like what they did against the Ravens, then I think they'll be they'll do all right against them. I know with the Steelers, they have 2 defensive ends. Unfortunately, it's not J.J. Watt, who's a beast. I mean, he's an absolute beast. He's not injured, but they got 2 defensive ends that are out. So hopefully they can focus more, double teaming, J.J. Watt, and not have to, worry so much about the other side, since they're down to their fourth string guy on that side. So. But yeah, I think it's going to be. It's just, I feel like every game this year is a slugfest. You got to have a running game, and I don't know. And the Raiders better for against the pass than the run, and they've shown that all year. I don't think they've even gotten over 100 yards in a single game. So I think they're probably one of the worst run teams in the entire NFL.
Oh yeah. I'd be willing to bet they are the worst.
They probably
can't disagree with you.
I mean, I don't think I don't think they've gotten over a rusher's gotten over 60 yards in a game yet, to be honest. But
no, you know what? I think you're right. I think probably 50 is probably the most that anyone's gotten so far this year.
A disgruntled Zamir White fantasy owner, But I agree with you, though. I mean, I'm curious to see how the Raiders bounce back from that game, making a change at QB, and in all reality, probably having to change the approach to some things offensively due to the different style of AOC 12 compared to Gardner Minshew. And that might, in all honesty, we don't know, but it might open things up. It might change things. And, I think the Steelers are, a bad enough team offensively that this could be a game. I think it's going to be a good game regardless, because it's essentially, 2 decent, fairly good defensive teams, with up to this point
Questionable
a
offense.
questionable offense. So it's
Yeah.
like it's going to be kind of a game of who makes the last mistake or the first.
Who doesn't
mistake.
turn the ball over
Yeah,
more?
exactly.
Yeah, who
and
blinks
and
first?
so you hope that Gardner Minshew's always you kind of had the allure of being a somewhat loose cannon with the ball, and AOC 12 is going to be a little more vanilla in terms of
Yeah, he's going to be more
trying to do
predictable.
things.
He's not going to run the ball at all.
But that might be what they need, though. Is someone who's not going to just try to play hero ball because he could get away with it in the past, and put yourself in these situations. I mean, because in all honesty, I agree with what we talked about in that pick six. Changed the whole landscape of the game last week. And it's like,
and I don't think AOC would have made that throw. I mean, in the way of, I think he would have actually hit Bowers versus, trying to make your tight end be 15 feet tall to go up and make that catch. So his accuracy is definitely better. His mobility is definitely worse. And it's really going to be put on Gillespie to really get the plays that work better to his strengths.
Yeah.
Versus Minshew, because they are totally different, type of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I know Biggie Bronco said potential that Russell Wilson starts. I don't know if I've seen that, but that certainly changes things too if he does.
That would definitely change things as well.
I think I'd give you guys a better shot to win that game if Russell starts.
That's what I'm saying. I think so too, man. But I don't know.
I'm actually kind of shocked the Steelers are even considering bringing in another quarterback after Fields has proven that he can maintain that ship at least somewhat. Like realistically, they should be 4-1 if we're being honest. Like if that fumble goes anywhere else but directly back to Dak Prescott, they're 4-1. Like it's, I don't know. I feel like Fields has him playing
good
well
enough.
He's
earned his spot. But I don't know. And who knows if it's just the big media now that he's practiced making that, they like to create an issue just to have something to report on. But I also, not that I know Russell Wilson personally, but he definitely strikes me as the kind of guy that's, if he thinks he's ready to go, he's going to let you know. And it might create an issue too. But I mean, I don't know. At the same time, he's kind of played himself out of any privilege to be the starting guy, in my opinion. So I don't know. That's definitely something to watch because I do think, if Russell goes out there, Raiders probably win.
So let's go Russell Wilson.
Yeah, right. But I think this is honestly, and I don't want to be like too drastic. So tell me if I'm out of pocket a little bit, Jack. But this honestly might be like the deciding game for AP. In my, the way I kind of look at it, like if they come out and look and have another deflating game like the Broncos one, I could see the tenure. I mean, I could see him being on the hot seat pretty quick if he's not already.
I could think, in media, it's going to be that way, but I honestly, you got to give the guy a year. If you're going to give Josh McDaniels, a year, you got to give AP a year just to see.
Well, you didn't give McDaniels a year, right? Didn't you give him like 8
No,
games?
He had a full year.
That's right.
He made it whatever 4 games or 5, whatever it was.
I honestly, though, this might be the game where if the Raiders lose, you realistically have to start looking at, do we just tank the season? Because Wilkins is done for the year. That was your big free agent acquisition in the offseason, and now he's gone. So you're going to revert essentially back to the same. You got to do something that's never been done in franchise history to get fired, and even with that, you'll get fired along with him. But yeah, I mean, like realistically, you guys need a quarterback. There's no secret about it. There's no doubt about it at this point. You need a quarterback, and you're not going to just have one show up randomly. And you're certainly not going to get one that's going to change the course of your franchise at 15, 16, or anywhere after that. I mean,
and this quarterback draft class is definitely not as deep. And if you look at it, they'll have a lot of cap next year.
You got to get.
But I mean, who's the best free agent going to be next year? Sam Darnold is the best free agent out there, and he ain't going to get you there either. So
no,
and there is no word in the way of tanking.
Like,
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's
exactly.
just bringing in a shinier Minshew. That's
Yep,
all it
a
is.
younger Minshew.
Yeah.
At least he probably doesn't pick his nose.
He does- or if he does, he's got better camera awareness, right? To
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
do it. To not know,
So-
hey, I just got benched. They're probably gonna film me a bunch. I'm gonna pick my nose.
I'm gonna show why I
Yeah.
got benched.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, realistically, man, it's gonna. I know we're only going into week 6, but that's honestly like something that the Raiders have to kind of already start looking at
Hey,
because
Fields will be a free agent. I'm
eh,
just kidding. It's the same thing. It's the
yeah.
same thing. He would just be able to.
Honestly, like
run.
Fields might yeah, his legs will be the only thing that you're going for with that, and you would just have to hope he doesn't turn the ball over. But I mean, yeah,
Yeah, no.
like what else?
No.
Where else do the Raiders move?
Well, you're right. I mean,
After.
but there is no word in tanking. There's no tanking.
I know
Raiders fan.
there's
But
I know
but
there's no
I will see.
tanking, but-
Maybe they start looking at some of the
Strategically
younger
thinking
players.
about your draft position.
Look at some of your
How about
younger
that?
guys because there's only so many good quarterbacks. But there's 4? I think 4 coming out in the draft this next year.
I mean, yeah, like it honestly is your opinionated preference, but I mean, Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, Jalen Milroe, and
But Beck.
Ewers.
Carson Beck. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, Quinn. Yeah, Ewers is like.
Nah, you want Milroe, dude. If
Yeah.
that's the one.
Yeah.
If you're tanking, I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the Georgia Alabama game. I lost any faith in Carson Beck after watching that.
Yeah, personally, I'm more
gained
of
a lot
Cam,
of stock in Milroe.
I'm a Cam Ward guy. So that's just me personally, and yeah, Carlos agreeing with me. Yeah, like I feel like that's the guy you'd go for. But I mean, not even trying to say this is like a salty division rival, but like realistically, this is the Raiders' only move. Like I said this before the season started. I'm still saying it now. You're not going to be able to compete in this league if you don't have a quarterback. I don't care how good your defense is. You could have the best run game on the planet. It does not matter. You need your quarterback. You need that guy that's going to touch the ball more than any other guy on your team. So I mean, as shitty as it is for
That's the
Raiders
center, dude.
fans, I mean,
Well, that's the whole thing, right? You have these type of weapons that the Raiders have. It's you just want a game manager and get the ball into their hands and let them make plays. But Minshew shown that he really can't do that. So,
Yeah.
and again, if the Raiders are going to be bad, which is a great possibility with the amount of injuries to key players, especially on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, they're wrecked. But yeah, then you got to go with AOC and just ride him out because you already know what Minshew's going to be. He's been in the league long enough. We've only seen AOC for 8 or 9 games last year, being a rookie. So yeah, you got to let him, run his course and just to see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think you go back to Minshew unless, knocking on wood, obviously never hoping for injury, but I don't think you go back to Minshew unless AOC gets injured. There's no reason. Yeah,
unless you're just fire garbage. Unless you're even worse. Which
I don't know that he can be any worse.
That's right. That's the whole thing.
He would literally have to turn the ball over multiple
to throw
times.
a pick every attempt.
Well, that's how Minshew's thrown a pick every game but one.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like the bar is basement barrel.
But the thing is he throws the picks, and then it seems to be the deciding factor of the game getting away from the Raiders.
Right?
Where I talked about, Mahomes is throwing a pick every game, but then he's found a way to bounce back and not let that mistake be the turning point.
Well, and I think that's the whole team. That's for your whole team too, in the way the mentality of Kansas City is because you got Patrick Mahomes. Oh, he makes a mistake. Hey, we're going to give you,
be all right.
a mulligan on that.
Yeah.
And we know you can come back and do your job. But when it's like Minshew, then it's ooh, there's not much hope of come back.
That's why I think it's and again, I'm not being the, like Robert said, the salty Chiefs fan, but I think that with the past draft they had and the younger components they have there, this is kind of the moment where, okay, if we lose this game, we got to seriously consider where are we picking this next draft and what positions are going to be available. And I think they do. If you make a significant upgrade, if the Raiders make a significant upgrade at quarterback, I think it's a totally different team.
Absolutely.
Even right now, because like they have a good defense. It's a lot of the times from what I've seen and watching their games, and I'll admit it's not the full extent of them, but the game always gets to a point where the offense is stabbing the defense in the back so much that they can't make
They wear out.
Yeah, they can't be elite because they're in too many bad situations, and that's just where if you get someone that is more competent and has a better arm and has the tools and athleticism to be able to move the ball, like you're giving yourself better opportunities as a whole, and you're not putting your defense in those moments.
And it's like you can't be one dimensional with a quarterback. Yeah, I mean that's true, Carlos. But you're at the point now where you need to draft.
First time for everything.
Yeah, you need to draft a quarterback.
Chiefs didn't take a QB in the first round from 1983 until 2017. And they took Patrick Mahomes. So
you only need to get it right once.
They got scarred by Todd Blackledge over Dan Marino, and then waited.
At least you didn't have Ryan Leaf over Peyton Manning. Although I know Manning went first, so it's a little less. A little less.
Control that.
Yeah, you can't control that, but.
I will say this in the way of one improvement, though. When Cody Whitehair was the left guard and JPJ was out, and then of course Munford starting at your right, and I think that's part of the reason why they chose Minshew to start in the first place, because again you got players that are missing, and you don't really know what you have on that offensive line. The offensive line has played a lot better. I mean, just looking at these two rookies in the way of JPJ and Glaze. I think they've definitely improved that offensive line, and that was kind of like the weird thing, Okay, Minshew, now you got some good young kids that are playing for you, which is an improvement for you. But you go in and you shit the bed, and you play horrible, and you're single-handedly he lost the game.
Picking your nose.
I mean, pretty much. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. No, he definitely did, and that's kind of what I was getting at in this past draft, because you got an elite weapon in Brock Bowers. You got, two very competent, if not borderline, potential to be elite offensive linemen. The components are there, like the young core is there to go ahead and proceed with getting your guy of the future at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Without,
no matter where they fall, it's like that is something that they're going to have to. If they play horrible, well, then you got a much easier shot in getting one of these kids.
Yeah.
If you play, 500 ball, or a little under 500, or a little over 500, which I don't see that being over.
Honest, that's not what you want.
Yeah.
Like
then you're going to have to do like Trey Lance and give it up like 3 first rounders or something like that.
And look at how it hasn't set back San Francisco yet, but that's because they've gotten lucky. But it should.
You're getting Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and
doing something like that, like what they did to give up Lance, and then all that happened after, like that would cripple any other franchise. But for some reason, everyone wants to trade with San Francisco. Purdy, and then everyone wants to trade with them to give them all these other elite weapons that they can afford. It works out. But that's what you don't really want. Even if you are like I'm not a Raiders fan, obviously, but even if I was a Raiders fan, I would be like, I don't really want AOC to come in here and light it up, because then that means we're in the middle of the draft and we got to go another year of thinking maybe he's the guy.
Well,
and I think it's just
we're gonna find out.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's a tough situation because on one hand, you would like to make the playoffs, and it's like, okay, we get that playoff experience, but you want that with your young franchise QB,
right?
Where you're able to get that playoff experience for him, and then you go back in the draft, and it's like, okay, now what can we address, and what pieces do we need to go after? But if you don't have that guy at QB, you're kind of just like mindlessly playing with no real like end game, because you're not gaining experience for your young franchise QB. You're winning enough to keep you relevant, but not enough that you're a legitimate threat in the postseason. And you're playing, like I said, well enough to where you're not going to have
like
a high enough.
Were,
exactly. Like the Chiefs,
Smith, like
100%. And it's like, are you gonna find that diamond in the rough that you can trade up to like 10, 11, and that way you don't have to give up top 3 draft pick compensation, And are you going to find that? I know you're not going to find him at Mahomes, but are you going to find that kind of talent at 10 and 11? That's something you see in college, and you see before anybody else. Like it's just such a rough situation for the Raiders with Wilkins going down, especially because you're at a crossroad of like, do we just tank it all? Trade Devontae, trade away all these old veterans, and just completely start
Play
fresh.
the young guys and see what we got.
And then you have to make a decision. Like, and this is the other crappy thing about hiring AP permanently. Do you want him to be your QB that is gonna start this new regime off? Probably not, because if you sell off everybody, you're most likely gonna want a new head coach to just bring in everything entirely new. So it's rough, and I say this, I have sympathy. Yeah, Carlos, 100%. I have sympathy for Raiders fans. Yeah, another year of purgatory is worst case scenario, because at this point you're kind of just wasting Max Crosby away. Like at this point, not even like trying to joke, but if you guys don't realistically finish bottom 5 this year, I know Max Crosby says he wants to finish his career in Vegas and with the Raiders, but realistically, there may be a point where you start looking to move on from him, because you just need to hit the reset button entirely.
Yeah, I don't ever see that really happening until he gets towards the tail end of his career, where it's like, where if you don't have a shot at all, and Max can go to a spot to get a Super Bowl and then come back, the next year and retire as a Raider. But that's just like what he was saying on like, I don't know if you guys saw the Pat McAfee show in the way of Lombardi, and said he had like a calf injury where it's a high ankle sprain. And then that Max is going to be disgruntled, about, playing for the Raiders. And then Max does, his own show and talks to, Pat too. And he just starts calling him the clown over and over. He's like, dude, you don't know me. You were here for like half a season. You didn't do shit. You were just kind of, walking around, holding, coffee for McDaniels. Just because you're disgruntled, don't talk out of my mouth. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He knows he's going to be setting all sorts of franchise records. This is his team. He's the absolute leader of this squad. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He just wants the pieces to be built around. And yeah, that'd be great. If we got, that quarterback next year, we'll find out, and we'll see how Aiden O'Connell plays. Again, my hopes are not, great. Keep it real, just based on the play that I saw last year. But again, you let him get that playing experience. What you were talking with Richard, Robert, he's a young guy. Let him play. Let him take his lumps. Let him figure it out. And the whole key is, does Gatsby start tailoring, to him versus what he did to Minshew? Or is it kind of like what Richie said? Hey, I didn't see Gatsby really change things up. Kind of just ran the same stuff the whole game. So it's going to be on Gatsby to sit there and go to his strengths and, stay away from his weaknesses. And the Raiders better not damn turn over the ball like 3 times like they did against Denver.
Yeah. Dude, because even in that, like I was saying, I don't think I said it. I was about to, and I think we got on something else. But even looking at that Broncos-Raiders game, like the Raiders won in every metric. I mean, other than penalties and turnovers.
Yep,
like
that
you
was
had
it.
time of possession. You had more offensive yards. You averaged more yards per play. You got more first downs. You had better third down conversion. Like everything was there to say the Raiders should have won. And so, I mean, that's just more evidence that one person, we all know who, lost it for him.
Yeah, right. I mean, Denver only converted 3 of 12 third downs. 3 of 12.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Raiders were 7 of 15.
Yeah, and that's. So it's
so
like
hope is not lost. It's just you got to eliminate the turnovers. Yeah. Eliminate those turnovers, and again, that's one of the key metrics, for a win-loss anyway, is the turnover battle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest component to any game.
So to finish it up, again, I'm calling it 23-16. Pittsburgh is the way I see it.
All right. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I think it can go either way, to be honest. I think it's a pretty evenly matched game, like I said, with 2 pretty good defenses and 2 subpar offenses, and it's going to come down to which defense shows up more. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So quickly, I guess I'll go to the Chiefs game. Oh wait, they got to bye. So we're chilling. I think Mahomes is, enjoying the Royals are in the ALDS, which that was kind of cool. When they were playing Monday, the Royals were playing at the same time. So it's like there's different parts of the game. You could hear the crowd cheering because the Royals would do something. Not that I'm a Royals fan. Go Cardinals. We suck though. But it's kind of cool for the city. It would have been cool. I thought there was a chance that they would have played at the same time, because the stadiums are right there next to each other. But I'm sure the Royals were probably like, "Hey, we got to change this MLB because no one's going to come to this game if it's the same time as the Chiefs." But yeah, so just I guess for the Chiefs, just want to get healthy. Take an extra week to work things out with the new weapons we got to move forward with, and have a pretty tough game week 7 at San Francisco. So we'll see.
Right.
But yeah, I think that about wraps it. Here we go. We got in at a good time frame here. Look at that.
Look at that. Under 2 hours.
Under 2. But
hey, you're going to be able to make your fill on time.
I know, yeah, and everyone in the chat, I see you all are in here watching. Feel free to slide over to the Lightning Fast Fantasy. No, I'm not a Rams fan. No. I did like Kurt Warner though. That guy just has a cool football story. But yeah, feel free to slide over to Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Podcast with me and Coach right after this. Fellas, good luck to your teams. I'm excited to watch the AFC West matchup and this historic battle really between the Steelers and Raiders. So good luck to your team. Everyone have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your NFL Sunday, NFL Thursday, and NFL Monday nights. And until next time, where the West Side is the best side.
Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the car.